Detonation. This time we're into the final week of the USTP campaign. It's huge. We're counting down to the big debate, and we will be having Gennady and Pavel coming on. Gennady will announce officially the debate. He will be telling us what the day and time is. We think we have things mostly sorted out, but we're going to wait for Gennady to come back to sort that out. But right now, Benzion, you sent me a press release. You want to know, you want to talk about some of your final week push, your final week plans, your final week campaign strategies, before we enter the final debate. So thank you for coming on Detonation, and we're glad to see you here. It's a big campaign switch, big campaign strategy change for you in these final weeks. How have you been feeling, first of all, about your campaign? With all the different things that have gone on, some non-existent characters, some candidates that won't even turn up to interviews, and some others that are persistently, have been persistent throughout the course of this historic event.
Yes. It is exciting to be at this point in history with the Transhumanist Party. We're at a pivotal moment, I believe, in early 21st century history. We're at a pivotal moment in Transhumanist Party history, and it's been an honor to even be a part of this. Yes, we have changed some features of our campaign strategy. My feeling is that if people want to learn more about the Futurist New Deal, I'm happy to talk to them personally. But there's been a great many podcasts and discussions where people can see that content. So we're trying to change our message a little bit and talk a little bit more about what we're going to do with this party in the 21st century. We want to be all of the things that I talked about in this press release. I hope that we will get to them. But I am looking forward, as you mentioned, to this debate. It's going to be an incredible time, and I'm looking forward to talking to all of these candidates. There are a lot more candidates in the race now. Some of them we haven't heard much from. Some of them I've never heard of them before in terms of their membership in the party. It does seem, I think, that Ms. Haywire and myself are the only people in this race now who were party members before they decided to run. They joined the party to run for president. It is what it is. But it's a great group of folks, and I'm looking forward to getting to know them a little bit more. Everybody is doing wonderful things in this. Ms. Haywire, we've had the back and forth, but I enjoy what she does. She's a tremendous talent, and I just want people to know that we are all looking forward to be working together, whatever the outcome of this election is.
Yeah, and this is true. All the candidates are doing a valuable service anyway, so no one wants to hit them too hard. But it is competitive. It is a race. It is for real. There's real money. There's real businesses. There's real lives at stake. So there is a certain amount of energy and a certain amount of anticipation built around these events. And although it is very nice, there's an element of seriousness there. But overall, everybody has to be thanked. But you mentioned there are like people like Nick's Matt Taylor we have never heard of. Mr. Harris has come in very late. By definition, almost writing himself off. He's a strong character, but he doesn't have the longevity capacity. That's what a lot of people are saying. And the only real the Haywire, yourself, Mr. Holsopple, these are arguable characters. What's so your message has been take the plunge. What's that about? You've been changing it up a little bit there, diving into pools and stuff. Memes going around, people seem to be taking to it. What's take the plunge?
Yeah, well, it's just this a campaign slogan that we came up derived from some horseplay around doing this press release, but people seem to have a laugh about it. I almost didn't put it up because I thought this getting into kind of fun territory. But I'm glad that we did, and people are enjoying it. Yeah, like I said, I've been very fortunate just to even be a part of this race, and to even be meeting the sorts of folks that I met in the course of these discussions. We wanted to talk about some of these endorsements that I've got. I'm lucky to be in the same room as somebody like Natasha Vita-Moore. I'm lucky to sit down with somebody like this. Yes, please.
Let's talk about those endorsements. So you have some strong endorsements. You have some official endorsements, some who've come on this show, some who are on the Futurist New Deal podcast, others, in written form. Let's go through it. So you mentioned Natasha Vita-Moore, obviously. Who else?
Yes. Yeah. So Natasha Vita-Moore had some glowing things to say about the Futurist New Deal and about the Ben Zion campaign. And she was kind enough to suggest that people support this campaign. And I was deeply moved by that. It's not an overstatement to say that a person like this, we wouldn't be calling ourselves transhumanists without her contribution. And it doesn't take but a Google search to see all of the things that she's done in this community. She's been a key organizer from the very first. She is to this day. And people who would try to downplay that, I wonder what they're doing a little bit. I mentioned Jose Cordero. He is the same kind of person, just that energy. And it's an honor. It's an honor to know such a person. It's an honor to have even the slightest insinuation from them that they would support what you're doing. And so to get something like that statement of support from them, I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed. These are people. There's some people have sports stars on posters on their walls. I have posters of these guys, and now I've spoken to them. So it's incredible.
Absolutely. Who else? Charlie Cam, I heard, is falling your way. Is that true?
Yes. Charlie Cam, executive producer of seminal transhumanist work. If you have not seen Transcendent Man, 2009 film about the life and work of Ray Kurzweil, you need to go and watch that. If you're calling yourself a life extensionist, if you're calling yourself a techno-futurist, and you're not well versed in some of these things, it's a documentary film that you should certainly see. And Charlie Cam, he was the chief architect of some of the real world relationships behind that film. We both interviewed him, and a wonderful man, a delight to be around in person as well. And he was very kind in saying that he supported the Futurist New Deal. And I even had a chance to talk to him a little bit about this a reality show pilot that I've shot recently about digital immortality, and that piece itself was inspired by all of these people's good work on Transcendent Man. It was a meditation on some similar themes, but from a little bit different view of technology.
And he's also the architect of the beautiful, I'm a Singularitarian. That was a famous song. It's a great song. His other little songs there. Especially, I loved the not My Fair Lady, the other one, The Sound of Music. I think there was some absolutely profound insights there, especially into the the power and control of the Luddites. I think you touched on that, but I also resonated with that very strongly. He's an incredibly smart gentleman and all that. And also, I think another one we had on last night, out of the blue, was David Shoemaker. He's a great guy, radical life extensionist, longevity. What do you make of that, gentleman?
Yes. David Shoemaker. But I do want to say something about Charlie Cam before we get to David Shoemaker, and that is just that Charlie Cam will be at Radfest. There are tickets available. It's coming up in a few weeks, the October 3rd to the 7th, I believe, and you should get to Las Vegas. It's not just a lot of presentations. It's a lot of fun, and it's a credible experience. It'll change your life. So if you're not going to go there, Charlie Cam wants to meet all of you. Every single one of you transhumanists, he wants to know you. I know it. He's told me this. So get your tickets. Go meet all of these guys. If you're at the fringes of this community and you're making jokes and you're having a good time with this, that's what people are seeing. But what this community really is about, it's about the techno-futurist outcomes, and it's about bringing people together. It's about building a quorum and a consensus for things like life extension, first and foremost. These people, they have big hearts. It takes a big heart for a person to support life extension for humanity. And these people, they will like to help you. You don't have to be on the outside sniping. You can join us in a more real way.
So we're going to go into your 10-step plan in a sec, or 8-step, or whatever it was you released on your website there. But
yeah.
Is this the theme? Is this the sort of positive theme that you're trying to convey over the course of this week? You're trying to say that we will work with Radfest under a Ben Zion candidateship. We will work with them. We're going to work with these other team players because they're fundamental to the growth and continuity of the USTP.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I see people coming into this race and they don't seem to have any reverence for these relationships and institutions. I see people out on the outside sniping, getting others worked up. If you can't have dealings with people who are leaders in our community, you can't really call yourself a community organizer. You're doing something else, stand-up routine. But it's not that difficult for these other candidates to call someone on the telephone and tell them how much they like their work. It's not that difficult to send them a letter. It's not that difficult to be building these relationships. But I see mostly people in this race tearing others down, and that's not how a policy organization should be run.
So, Ben, so I've been in communication, as everybody knows, with top factions of the USTP leadership, etc. And something they want candidates to talk about, which are not being talked about, is this notion of a mythical elite. There's this sort of idea floating around that there's this big elite Illuminati type that's bullying everyone who's on the lower echelons. And they said this needs to be introduced. So I better introduce it because I only got like a week left. So, my question to you, and I'll ask other candidates about this, is there an elite within the USTP that's bullying people, that's giving transhumanism a bad name, cryonics a bad name? Is this a real thing, or is this all just a mythos, campaign strategy?
It's pure puff. It's a campaign strategy. And I'll tell you why. Because this is the exact same messaging that you get from anti-transhumanists, from people who call us Luciferians. They say that there's some kind of great conspiracy. They don't have any evidence of it. They don't have any nefarious doings that they can point to. But they want to. And we have a lot of people in this race who are talking in these same terms. This is the talk of a paranoid schizophrenic. This is paranoiac talk, rather. It's not productive. Everybody knows that the people who are working for life extension, the people who are working on advanced algorithms, and people who are working in the arts, they're working hard to advance techno progress and futurist outcomes.
I've raised these concerns as well with others as well, party leadership and others, in regards, because it makes my job hard when when you have these paranoid conspiracies floating around. It's nice to hear a candidate actually, diffuse some of these myths. But we're trying to do a service here. We're trying to normalize, this sort of rhetoric and these sort of technologies. And it makes it very hard when all of a sudden, someone like myself, who's definitely on the edge and an advocate, gets pulled into this mythos of an elite or this Illuminati conspiracy theory, silliness. Let's go back to endorsements for a second. So that David Shoemaker, I think he was on your list as well, right?
Yes. David Shoemaker is a brilliant man, and he knows a lot of people in this community. He's been devoted to life extension in so many ways over the years, and so getting an endorsement from him, it was also, I thank him again from the bottom of my heart for doing that. I know David pretty well, but I was not expecting that he was going to say exactly what he did. And watching that live, it was kind of overwhelming for me. My dog ran away for a day yesterday, so I was at sixes and sevens, and then I see that, and it did touch me. It did touch me very deeply. He's a good man, David Shoemaker.
Absolutely, and he's a policy man too, so that's really good. And he's a radical life extensionist, and that's something that this party should be really focusing on: wellness, longevity, and happiness. So that's good. Another person I remember because they came on the show is Dr. Dan Elton.
Yes, brilliant man.
Absolutely brilliant man. He's big with the National Institute of Health, and AI, the AI fields and stuff. That man gave you an endorsement. What do you think about that?
Yes, he's become an incredible friend of the Futurist New Deal and the Ben Zion 2020 campaign. And I was so pleased, also quite surprised to see that endorsement. And the thing is, with the messaging that I've tried to do in this campaign, I've reached out to people and I've asked them to do the podcast. I've asked them to work on this companion piece. And in the course of these conversations, I'm meeting people who have a genuine devotion to these initiatives. They're not nibbling at the edges. They're not trying to make it all terribly tongue in cheek. The people who are at the center of this are the ones who are really the true believers, that is really the difference when we're talking about this kind of myth of the elites. What these people are really talking about is they want to be making jokes, and they want to undermine the people who are doing the serious work in this community. And Dan Elton is, with his work with the National Institutes of Health, he's a data scientist of an incredible background, and getting an endorsement from him, it was a real honor.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because it comes down. I find some of that rhetoric is just a frustrating notion of a misunderstanding of basic economics. Anybody who owns a business is an elitist, and that's just simply not true. So that's bad. We can go over friends and allies, but we've got to move on because we're running out of time. Because we've got to keep going. We don't want it to go on forever. But we can go over friends and allies and stuff. But we better keep moving on. You released an 8-step plan.
Yes, sir.
8, 10, I don't know. You released some sort of plan thing. You've got it down here in your show notes that you wanted me to mention.
Yes,
what are those? What are those steps, and why are they important to your campaign? And what rhetoric are you trying to set off in the final week of the campaign?
Yes. Well, this is my campaign promise to you, and we have a lot of energy for the Ben Zion 2020 campaign. We have a lot of interest, and we have the kind of momentum. You might not see it, but the kind of momentum that can grow this party. And we're going to grow this party to 10,000 people by the year 2022. And that is something that we can do. It is something that we will do. It is because life extension is something worth fighting for, and people recognize that on its face. And so I don't think that it's an audacious goal. I think that it is what will happen. under the Ben Zion campaign.
Very positive rhetoric. That's something that interests someone like myself. I want to hear positive things about the future of the party. I haven't heard that from other people campaigning. I've just heard a lot of policy stuff, and we've been through, as you mentioned this before. We know your policy. We know you can battle on policy. But what about the actual party? No one's talking about the party, and this is good to hear.
Right.
10,000 by 2022. Let's do it.
Yeah. And, it's, again, we're talking about people sniping, people coming at this not with a serious-minded attitude, people saying all manner of things that, frankly, insults the intelligence of people like Jose Cordero, like Natasha Vita-Moore, to make light of the work that people do in this world. These are heavy hitters. And if you are not taking seriously what these people are doing, if you're turning this into a sideshow, shame on you. And
Mr. Jose Cordero was endorsed by 4 South American presidents, and he was one of the key advisors to a whole bunch of them. I mean,
precisely.
This guy is no joke. You want to ruin that relationship? You're cutting yourself off from entire nation states.
Yes, exactly. He's one of only a handful of people who's received a sizable votes in running on the longevity platform, a sizable number of votes.
And he's founded his own political party in Spain. He has the wherewithal to actually do it in a foreign country with a foreign language and work within a very complicated system like the European Union, for example. That's an extremely complex system, and he has enough intelligence, intellect, money, resources, connections to actually formulate something like that and make a very, very good run on a very wonky issue like what we're talking about and popularize it from a very big standpoint. This is no joke.
Yes. And just to have that understanding, and I don't think that the candidates, the other candidates, they realize what they're looking at when they look at the Transhumanist Party and the World Transhumanist Movement. And that's unfortunate because that is not the recipe for building out this organization to 10,000. That's a recipe for, frankly, just playing a lot of games.
And it disturbs me as well because there's people like Peter Diamandis, there's people like Dmitry Iskov and others who would love to be involved, who are sitting back watching things like this. And, and when they hear that they're just some sort of elite that don't participate and don't help and don't, this sort of negative energy, they will just sit back and they will look for a better, stronger party. They will look for something else, an outlet. If there's negative rhetoric, saying we don't want scary elites, we want to do it all on our own. You're shooting, and I have investors here in Australia. I have people here in Australia that are raring to go because they can see the potential. But they go, don't know what So think about this. Sorry, continue with your 8-step plan. So 10,000 members by 2022 at the latest.
Yes. The second point is just organizational matters within the party, making sure that we have a well-run organization. And of course, in every respect, Gennady has been an incredible leader in this, but we want to start vetting certain aspects of what's happening a little bit more. And we want to, we're a young party, but we can be moving in a better direction with some of that. Maybe that shouldn't be the second thing I mentioned. Maybe that should be a little closer to the end. But it is something that I find very, very, very concerning. When you have people like these luminaries and titans of industry that you mentioned who are very close in our orbit, and they could easily shy away from us because we are not having just doing ordinary kinds of things that any organization would do in dealing with one another and in maintaining good relationships. And that is as much a goal of a policy club as anything else. We have to allow that we can coexist with these other institutions.
I like this idea because if you're promising growth of the party. You know, Gennady is a strong individual, but he can't do everything. He's not Shiva. He doesn't have 8 arms, so he needs relief and support on fundamental levels. You know, and that doesn't mean a diminishing of his value, of his roles, of his anything. It actually moves improving efficiencies, so it takes his valuable time away from less valuable activities. And he can, so he can concentrate on larger decision-making processes rather than silly every day-to-day processes that I think that he gets dragged down with far too often.
Far too often in these recent months.
Absolutely.
Certainly. And I want to say again, if you are one of these people who is just trying to cause people grief in this organization, use those energies, become a volunteer. Reach out to the officers. Like Charlie Cam, Gennady, he's a nice guy. He'd love to talk to you. He'd love to work with you. He'd love to let bygones be bygones, as we all will. So try and use your powers for good instead of evil, if you will. That's my message to the people who are who in this campaign who are sometimes driving things a little off the rails from here and there.
What's your next step there, Ben?
Yes. Well, the Futurist New Deal is an extraordinary plan. The Futurist New Deal for America. And I want to see it forever ensconced in the USDP efforts. I certainly want to see elements of it. You know, I was talking to Pavel Lilin today. We had a wonderful chat, and we were talking about the ways in which a basic income is effectively party doctrine for the left libertarians, for techno-progressives, for most every transhumanist. It's overwhelmingly supported. So many of these parts of the Futurist New Deal, you know, we have people who were not party members coming in and criticizing what is effectively party doctrine because reasons. But everybody in this community sees through those hollow criticisms. And the Futurist New Deal for America is an incredible plan. We are going to win. We are going to bring America into a new stage, and we are going to move the ball as far as we can in the general election, raising awareness for these ever so important issues.
On this point, this raises a very serious concern. Are you open to elements of other people's points? For example, an ideological rival such as Mr. Shatke. You know, are you open to listening to their opinions, or is it going to be the the Futurist New Deal and my way or the highway?
Yeah, no, there's never a situation where I'm not going to be hearing someone's opinions in any situation. You know, a primary race is a complex thing, but there's not going to be closed doors. You know, we mentioned John Kerk's, a brilliant man, working very hard, and many of his environmental initiatives are things that I would very much like to incorporate into the USDP and into the Futurist New Deal for America. This is a man who has a lot to say, and it's more so than anyone else in this organization at this time. I would like to reach out to him and say that I would like to work with you to make the things that you do a part of what I am doing with the Futurist New Deal.
Well, that's some breaking news there. All right, what's your next step?
Yes. So we want to be using all of the tools at our disposal as well as we can, but we also want to be having positive messaging, specifically around life extension and other techno-progressive initiatives, all of the ideas that are described in the Futurist New Deal for America. And we have a lot of media strategies that we've delineated and we will be sharing in the future, not only new media, not only podcasts and things, a lot of exciting opportunities coming down the pipeline. Some things you would hardly believe were you to see it. So stay tuned to what Ben Zion 2020 is going to do. We are going to grow this operation, and it's going to be a wonderful new time for the transhumanists.
Sounds like you just won Zoltan Itzvan as well with that. Zoltan Itzvan will be very happy hearing that you can get some legacy media strategies on board, and I think Zoltan Itzban would be very happy to work with you on those initiatives. So that's interesting there. What's your next step?
Yes, yes. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the United States, its infrastructure. There's a lot of ways in which, over the course of the 20th century, we as a people, our leaders, business leaders, politicians, we haven't done our due diligence for keeping the United States as a world leader in many areas. And so we need to be building out infrastructure. And, I could talk about that a lot. I have talked about that a lot in many, many interviews. But I'd like to also talk about the ways in which we can build out new kinds of infrastructure and institutions. My friend and running mate, Kimberly Forsyth, she has been working on a Estonian state-run incubator, and she's done incredible work with advancing this program for life extension using Senolytics, personalized medicine, bringing this into a reality in their public health service. And it's incredible to be able to do this sort of thing. Just yesterday morning, I interviewed Ilya Stambler, our friend in Israel, an organizer who has done incredible work, some similar kinds of programs, in fact. And, these are the kinds of things that we need to be doing. Life extension, it is a thing that we all need. It is a thing that unites our community. As my campaign slogan says, radical life extension is closer than you think, so get ready.
Absolutely. All right. Any more plans there on your plan list?
Yes, certainly. We have a few more things that we can talk. So the next thing that I'd like to talk about, Steele, is yourself. You've done incredible work in creating and building out Detonation, in creating a platform for techno-optimists, in really bringing people together, in elevating the discourse. And we need to have this strength of relationships with people like yourself. It's not just it's not just about these existing relationships, but it very much is about honoring the work that you are doing. And so there's nothing more important than our media partners like yourself, our other partners and parallel institutions, keeping everyone on friendly terms. Maybe it's not the easiest thing to do, but Ben Zion 2020 is going to do that.
This is good news. This is good news because, as third parties, we would like to work closely with the USTP, and we'd like to work together. And we can't really work together on the outside. We want to use the USTP as the glue and the framework to move through and beyond. So this is good. So greater third-party integration, mechanisms for cooperation, all of that assists us greatly, and it assists you guys. And there's a symbiotic loop there that's encouraging. I'm not hearing any of this stuff from the other candidates. So,
well, you can't do that. You can't do that if your story is that you're a space alien or that you're a performance artist. At a certain point, if you bring that to the table with somebody like David Wood, he says, "Why are you playing a practical joke on me? I have things I could be doing right now." So we have to have somebody who is at least approaching this with a straight face, and other candidates are. But the Ben Zion the Ben Zion campaign is head and shoulders above the others in this area, and I think that people can see that.
All right, fantastic. What's next?
Yes. So I will say that, we talked about this with a few different people. We want to start having new kinds of organizations within the party. We want to be reaching out to these people who are artists and who are doing different kinds of work. We want to have work groups in different disciplines that are allowing people to bring their energy to this organization, the United States Transhumanist Party. A policy club, it's a volunteer army, and it takes all kinds of people to run an operation like that. And we want to be using all of their strengths to the fullest. And the best way to do that is to be getting them together, and not just standing at the outside looking in, but have work groups that will also be working in new media to promote their specific initiatives. And this is, as long as we have our positive message in this, this is good. Life extension is maybe number one, but we know that there are many core principles of the Transhumanist Party. So there is room for everyone to be doing this sort of work. And that kind of does transition to the, that was point number 7, but that does transition to point number 8, which is we need to be a unified organization. And maybe not everybody knows implicitly how important that is, but we need to be able to work together. We need to be able to mend the fences that have been banged up a little bit. We need to be able to be building bridges to all of these other organizations, so that we're not looking like some kind of unstable entity to the Peter Diamandises and the Dmitry Iskovs of the world, so that we're looking like something that could be the basis for strong relations and not a threat to going concerns and real drivers of progress.
As you kind of know, I'm kind of a nexus of information and gossip, being a media guy, and this is a concern, should I say, slightly that does float around, is that people that basically haven't had a voice yet. I mean, if they won magically, how does the party function? It would split up, right? There's division. There's some policies of division within other candidates, and it's nice to hear that the USTP will survive and thrive, and that you will accommodate. Have you got more on that? What about you're a very policy orientated person. There's Shatke, and then there's Haywire, and there's Holsopple, and they're all completely different in many ways. I mean, are you willing to sit around a table and talk to these guys and say, for example, to Haywire, we're going to listen to your cultural concerns and your transgressive arts, and yes, Mr. Holsopple, we're very interested in the 222, and just because you didn't win doesn't mean you have to take the 222 out and go to another party. We want to work with the 222. It's as Newton Lee argued, it's a valuable transhumanist resource. And Mr. Shatke, Gennady and others and myself, they're all Mises people. You don't need to run away because you can stay here in the party because it's a place for you. Is this what you're saying, that you can work with these other people and hold them under the broad tent?
Oh, absolutely, Steele. And on September 29th, when I am the presidential candidate officially for the Transhumanist Party, there's going to be no casting into outer darkness. There's going to be no weeping and gnashing of teeth. Everyone is going to have a seat at the table, and that's just the adult thing to do. This was the first thing I also said to Charles Holsopple when we spoke on the telephone. I said, I understand that you joined this party fairly recently, but I see the work that you're doing. I know your dedication to life extension. It doesn't matter, these differences. These are small things, because we're all working for the same thing, and that is fundamentally these better public health outcomes and these better techno-progressive outcomes that we want to see come to pass in our world.
Yeah, that's really good. And the same thing there with John Kurtz, with you mentioned with his environmental policies and initiatives, and working together so closely under the Unity ticket with Kimberly Forsyth. You have access to government infrastructure there to actually maybe, push through some of these things into practical terms. Florian Marcus, for example, who I'm going to have on the show soon, with e-governance and other things. I mean, these are actual policies that can actually be implemented in real life using the mechanisms here that you've already built. This isn't a sham. it's something that can be implemented. That's highly interesting, and it's highly attractive to many people at the USTP. Obviously, other candidates still have a week to go, but you know, if I were them, I would pick up the game. You know, we've been through policy with you. Okay, policy is one thing, but what are their visions for actually unifying the party, bringing the party together, growing the party, implementing media strategies, working with foreign governments, working across with third-party entities, working with billionaires, and not ostracizing them as some sort of you know, mythical Illuminati freaks who all need to be sort of you know, thrown to the lion den.
Sure.
What are their plans on these issues? I mean, I haven't heard this stuff, you know, and I haven't heard positive rhetoric around. Yeah, and you know, and it's a very interesting strategy here going forward, Ben. We only got a week to go, but you know, it's looking bright from this side, I can say.
Yeah. You know, I'm reminded of the conversation I had with the Radfest communications director. Radfest coming up on October 3rd. Be there or be square. Joe Bardeen, a great guy, a fun guy. You know, just a guy who's got a big heart and a big personality, kind of like Charlie Cam in that way, I guess. But you know, also just so insightful and so on point with these ideas around life extension. And you know, we were saying that we can do this. We can create a society where life expansion, where radical life extension is the norm, where it is not just an accepted practice, but is fully integrated in every facet of civil society, and that so that we live in a country of people who have access to super longevity, those who want it, which is basically everyone. There's so much room for growth here in this organization. If we can all stay pointed in the same direction, we can really do wonderful, incredible things. And Ben Zion 2020 is the ticket to doing that for this organization.
All right, Ben Zion 2020. Thank you very much for telling us your plan, your strategy going into the last week. You know, your change of campaign rhetoric and all the other things you've been talking about. That's really insightful. And you know, if you support Ben Zion, share this video around. I think this video is a fundamental campaign piece for you. You know, it helps us out if you share that around, but you know, share that around and get this strategy out there, because I think this is something very exciting. You know, and I wouldn't be saying this if I had other people coming on and saying, hey, here's our plan to unify the party, to grow the party, to, you know, work with Zoltan Itzman, to talk to legacy media. If I had, you know, to do all these other things you're talking about, implement good strategies, executive reforms, you know, a whole bunch of stuff, alleviating some of the work, you know, the atrocious amount of work that's been dumped on the top executive. You know, so this is all good stuff from what I'm hearing. And you know, if you've got something better, if you're Mr. Kurtz, if you're Haywire, if you're Holsopple, if you're yeah, any of these other people, I mean, come on, let's hear it. I mean, I'm willing to have you on, but you know, nobody else is approaching me. You emailed me this list, so I mean, that's great.
Yeah, well, it's not an easy thing to get a team together and write a platform to reshape the policy of a country. So it's easier to pretend to be a space alien. It's easier to snipe from the outside, but that's not the work. You know, Kim and I were joking when we first talked about this. Kim says, you know, people are saying, you know, who are you to run? Who are you to run, Ben Zion? Goofy guy with a silly name. We don't know that much about you. But it's not about this kind of thing. It's about doing the work. It's about bringing folks together, and it's about making this into the best organization that we possibly can. We owe it to those people who haven't heard about life extension, who are skeptical about this in practice, to do everything that we can to bring this into our world.
Thank you very much for coming on Detonation, Ben Zion. That's a very insightful, new messaging coming out of the Ben Zion campaign. I wish you all the best for the last week. We'll see you around, I guess, and
Yep.
And we'll see you definitely at the debate there. Thank you
Yeah,
very
looking
much
forward to it.
coming on. Absolutely, thank you so much.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, sir. It's always a pleasure.
Detonation, all more coming all this way, all this week.